Yeah. All right, just to be formal about it, uh, thank y'all so much for joining in for this artist conversation with Alana Marie, filmmaker, documentarian, archivist, social worker, all the things, especially in support and amplification of Black people, Black spaces, Black communities. And so, Alana, thank you for all the work that you do. My goodness. Um, and I know there's some music playing in the background. I want us to start there with this song, this Earth, Wind, and Fire song. I'll write a song for you. Um, Music influences art in a lot of different ways, and I know like you vibe out. I've seen your stories. Right now, like I guess one, I know that you're a lover of St. Louis music.
I am.
Top three artists, top three St. Louis artists.
Ah, that is hard. And people are gonna be so mad at me. I don't even know if I have favorite St. Louis a- artists as opposed to like St. Louis music types and memories.
Oh, okay.
Um, but like KB, so Kayla, I really enjoy her artistry because she's a writer. She's a poet. Um, I really, really love her work. Um, I'm a Murphy Lee fan, and because he was like one of the underrated Saint Lunatics, that to me was always like one of the top ones. And so, like last year, seeing Twitter make a Murphy Lee Appreciation Day, I was like, that is so St. Louis. And like, I don't care, don't nobody else care what's going on right here. Like, give Murphy Lee his flowers. But I just St. Louis's music just reminds me of my youth and fun times in my youth and um, knowing how important like 314 Day is to our people and just seeing
Yeah.
from other cities start implementing their, if they can, if it fits the calendar year. But like that came from us. Like that came from us. So I all things
So
to the
here's
death.
the other part to it though. St. Louis songs often have like dances that go to them.
Yes,
Like I remember in college, like getting down on the floor. Like, are there any songs that just like make you want to, do a little two step here and there, do a little chicken hand?
I I'm known for like when we go to weddings, especially if it's like a St. Louis based wedding. But like if they play the whole nine with DJ Chaos, like my shoulders just get the moving. I religiously like that mob out. There are
Yes.
some dancing, jiving, juking, joyful, jubilee
Yeah.
people, but that is like that's when I'm going to a wedding at the end of this month, and the groom is from St. Louis, and I am
Hey.
very excited, very excited.
Nice. Naira, I know you're like into dancing and stuff too, right? I see you on the
Of
gram at
course.
He a
least.
whole dancer. Nair is a whole dancer.
A whole dancer.
I mean, I be doing a little something, some
No
little, a
ma'am.
little Nina Pop, a little.
No ma'am.
I cut my camera on for a second. What's up, y'all?
Oh, one, two, like you do choreography, Naira.
I like to. I like learned because of when I was in college and I was bored and didn't know nobody. So I was like, I'm gonna learn these YouTube dances that everybody be doing, and then taught myself how to dance. So yeah, I'm trying to keep up with you, Alana.
Oh,
She she be on Instagram getting it. Like I feel like we haven't had a session where we are just dancing. So I'm ready to see you outside again.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here for
Yeah.
it.
Yes. That would be so dope. I feel like I used to know how to do all the dances. And these days, like the way my knees act, it's just it's not working. It's not clicking. And as my mom said, I've been around too many white people. She's like, you ain't got it no more. And I'm like, dang, like don't roast me like that. Uh, but like dance is so critical to culture, in the same ways that art, might visually represent something. When you come to any city, at least in the US, like there's a culture behind dancing. And I wish that like we could do better at telling the stories, the histories, archiving that, about like who we are as people. But I know that like, outside of dance, archiving, documenting things, that's one of your jams. That's one of your passions and gifts.
Mhm.
Uh, like, tell me more about that. Like, what got you into it?
I was just sitting down thinking today, like I've had this thought before, but it was like more pronounced today that I've always documented occasions. Like back when we had to go to Walgreens to wait on our pictures to get developed, like I scrapbook, like I have a whole scrapbook that I didn't put pictures like glued in, but they're like sitting in the sleeves and
Nice.
taking pictures, of a typical day in high school and going home on my, PC computer and putting in the little USB cord and uploading entire Facebook albums of just nothing. I did that.
Yeah.
Like grabbing a friend by the arm, turning the camera around, taking it like I've always done that. Um, I didn't think nothing much of it, when I was younger, but I saved like newspaper clippings all the time. I would save like rip pages out of magazines that I really liked and I would save it. And I never really understood why I did that. I loved history. Like I would watch like Lifetime at the age of 11. Like I would binge watch like Lifetime shows and unsolved mysteries. And my husband is like, that's why you crazy now. And I'm like, I love learning like why things happen. And it's just but it never made sense to me like career wise.
Yeah.
Getting older, like my mom is very much a historian. She spent a lot of time, especially after the passing of a lot of my family members, like just going through different websites and learning like our lineage and the origin of where people came from. Like my mom's side is from Kentucky, my dad's side, my grandpa came from Covington, Tennessee, and who came to St. Louis first and who lived with who and
Yeah.
mental illness, physical ailments, and all this makes sense because your great great grandma had this. Like my mom did that. And then my grandmother, my both my grandmothers actually tubs of photos. Like I was talking to somebody the other day about how our elders would go to funerals and take pictures
Yeah.
of the
Of the
body.
body.
And I
Of
was
the
like, it's
body.
black people asking, how was the funeral and how the body look. The two primary questions, and just going through her albums of like, why are y'all just taking pictures of people funerals? And it's because a lot of times for black funeral homes, the funerals will be held in the house of the person who owned the funeral home. The funeral home was the house. The basement was where they prepped the body. But my grandmother traveled a lot. She just took pictures of like rocks and walls and sidewalks of where she was, like Jerusalem and different places. And just, I had an opportunity to go through that tub and smell it. It smells like her house. It smells like her. And it's a piece of her that I get to keep because neither of my grandmothers actually are still alive. And get to sit down with my daughter and she'll ask, who is such and such? And I'm like, well, I don't know who that person is, but I believe that your great aunt, that was your grandmother's sister. She died before I was even born. That's why I'm so adamant about taking pictures. My mother, she's not so much anymore, but usually like I don't like pictures. I don't like how I look in pictures. I don't, don't take no picture of me. And I have to scream like, it ain't about you. Like you are not here anymore. You are going to have kinfolk born after your passing that are going to need to know who you were in this family. Like I don't need you to be Olin Mills. You don't got to come and pose for the, like just sit there. Just
Yeah.
sit there and just understanding like the importance of documentation and archiving and controlling our narrative,
Yeah.
which clearly we see how important it is, especially this past week of controlling our narrative. Like how I am on social media, how I was prior to social media, like a lot of my imagery captures me. If you know me in person, the things that I post, like, oh, that sounds like Alana. That is Alana. Alana acts the same way she does in person. Like that is vitally important to me. And how I shape my narrative, like I control that. I
Yeah.
capture that. And I preach that to everybody.
Yeah, that's real. It's so powerful how like, for so many folks, like you're in your 30s, like at a certain point, so many of us start to realize that, oh, the stuff that I'm doing right now, I've been doing it. Like my family's been doing it. And it's like we start doing what we ultimately become before we even have the vocabulary around it, and that is very powerful. That's very profound on a familial level, but also on like a community wide level. And like as I was listening, I was thinking about the shirt that you're wearing. Yeah, show it off, show it off. Yes. In all of these places that are on here that meant something to somebody, to a lot of people, to a community of folks, and the powers that be, oppressive systems, white people, white supremacy, all played a part in erasing many of these spaces. And so the practices that your grandmother, your mom, your family, you have is so critical when you blow that up, like when you scale that up to a community wide level, because when those spaces leave or are erased, we lose that history. We lose that sense of lineage. And I'm curious, like with with creating the Kinloch Doc, like were there things that started to piece together that you hadn't already learned about?
Well, yes. So how I usually tell the story is like the Kinloch Doc came about when I was in graduate school at the Brown School of Social Work. So coming into the school, I was studying children, youth, and families. I had a history in working in college access. I had a passion for fatherhood advocacy work. Rest in peace to Halbert Sullivan, the founder of the Father Support Center. He passed away yesterday morning. He wrote my letter of recommendation to get into the Brown School. Like that was a lot of my service oriented passions, surrounded teen motherhood advocacy work, fatherhood advocacy work, college access for low income underrepresented minority students. And that's what I was going to school for. And then my perception of social work was so narrow um, and ignorant, realistically, before going to that school. And it wasn't until meeting Jack Kirkland, Pawpaw, where he taught me so much. Like I spent my last year in graduate school, like excited to learn new things, but pissed off at the same time about how much time was wasted in my former educational years. About like I had to have access to this type of privilege to get into an institution like this, to learn about shit that I should have already known about my people in my city. So I spend a lot of time angry. Like I'm 25. Why am I just now learning? I had never been to the Ville before going to the Brown School.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the site of Puadago for the first time, where my mom is from. Never been there before going to the Brown School. Never learned about Westland Acres before going to the Brown School. And so just so much historic history, rich Black history in, St. Louis that I'm not taught in public school. I'm not taught in high school. I'm not taught in undergrad. Like I had to pay X amount of dollars to get access to the institution to learn this stuff. But again, if I hadn't gone to the Brown School, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now. So was it worth it? Yes.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
getting introduced to Jack Kirkland and him exposing me to, policies that have plagued historic Black communities, such as Kinloch, and, me being a historian before I claimed the title, I'm just like, I wonder if there's a documentary on Kinloch. I wonder if anybody's ever shared a visual, story about it, and nobody had. And then Jaquie uh, Rogers was like, you do it. I'm like, okay. And I said okay before I knew what I was saying okay too.
Mm-hmm.
But learning about Westland Acres and Meacham Park and Kirkwood and Cookie Thornton and the Ville and just and I always say every affluent part of St. Louis, probably every affluent part of Missouri, Black people have lived, built community, had schools, had jobs, had lives, and they've been pushed out. Your Claytons and your Kirkwoods and your Wildwoods and your Baldwins and Richmond Heights and all of that. But every dilapidated part of St. Louis, your North St. Louis, your Wellston, your Kinlochs, your Badens, um, we've also lived, and it was a nice area. We had community, we had our own stores, our own schools, and then we've been divested in. Like we've touched every corner and crevice of that city. We played a role in the build and the makeup of that city, and we are owed so much more. And that's what makes me angry. But that's what also gives me hope. Even with what's going on right now in the country, I wouldn't have pursued social work. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I, in my heart of hearts, didn't believe that things would get better,
Mhm.
even if it's not in my lifetime.
Yeah,
But if I
that's
can play,
real.
a small role, like, I don't think I'm gonna change the world, but I can change the part of the world that I'm in. That'll, somebody will come into, and then it'll change the part of the world that they're in. And I just want to play that little my small role through storytelling.
That's real. And shouts to Jack Kirkland. Like everybody should just learn who Jack Kirkland is and amplify his work, his name, his wisdom.
Yes,
He similar to you. He was like my first real introduction to like historic Black St. Louis, and I took his East St. Louis class, but
same.
yeah, through that class, that's what got us introduced to all of these other places because he was so open about literally taking us there, like drive, like doing a little bandwagon and driving over to these places, and we would sit and eat, and then just walk, and I was like, it takes it takes this person. It takes that special human who is committed to correcting these wrongs and equipping folks like you to do that, to do that work. But the thing about Jack is that I call him Professor Jack. Professor Jack, like he is, in as much as he's a historian, he's a visionary.
Yes.
I wonder if you like. Do you remember how in his class he would have these newspaper clippings where
Yep.
he wrote something in 1978 that was happening now? It's like, how did you predict this future, this current reality? You know?
And he'll sit back with his legs crossed and his arms folded, like, see who wrote that? Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Like, who you think you is? But just articles upon articles, and just people will swear this man is crazy because the ideas that he talked about, I can only imagine how grandiose they were in the 70s and the 80s. But he follows it.
Yeah.
It literally plays out. Like, I don't know how this man knows, but he masterful.
Yes, it's
Masterful.
beautiful, and I definitely see that could direct connection between you learning with him and you doing the work that you're doing, and yeah, there are just so many stories, so many documentaries that you could create just from St. Louis alone,
Yes.
and I know that for you, like filmmaking, like long form documentaries, that's not your only creative form. You create YouTube videos, you create content. Could you
Mhm.
talk a little bit more about who you are as a content creator?
So I actually started as a blogger. Back in undergrad, when I was at Mizzou, I had started a blog called The Lukewarm Christian, and I thank God for growth every single day. But my walk in faith really began at the age of 21. So I gave my life over to Christ at the age of 21, 3 months before I graduated from college. And I wrote about my experience and what that was like for me as a young single mother in the church, in school at Mizzou. But I also wrote for like other publications about pop culture, Black history, and I just continue to write. So my origin is in writing. When I went to the Brown School, I continued writing. I was a contributor for Exo Nicole, for Blavity, for The Root. And I really like, I would write blog articles in the middle of class,
Mm,
like looking at the clock, like, we ain't talking about nothing. I'm gonna just finish this, post this article. So it started as a writer. My husband, for my 25th birthday, purchased I am AlanaMarie.com for me. And I had my own website where I would have my own blog.
yeah.
So filmmaking wasn't even on the radar back then. Like when I graduated from undergrad and decided to serve in the AmeriCorps, I was going the nonprofit route. Like I was still very much interested in fatherhood advocacy. Like I thought I was going to be managing like somebody's nonprofit. And I might one day, I don't know. But the extent of my creativity was with writing. And then my I love thrifting. That was a hobby. I and my other grandmother's name, she passed away. My father's mother passed away in 2014. My mother's mother passed away in 2015, almost a year to the day. And in her honor, I had started an online thrift and vintage store. One to kind of, supplement income while I was in graduate school, but to honor her. And I'm learning like throughout my creative endeavors, a lot of what I'm doing is honoring, my loved ones. And so I had that thrift store where I kind of learned a little bit about photography because I had to take my own pictures. So my husband bought me this used camera, this Canon Rebel T5, and I, was on YouTube learning how to use the camera. That was also at the same time in getting into Jack Kirkland's class and learning about Black history. And then when Jaquie posed that statement about you do it, like, okay, I'm gonna have to learn how to do filmmaking. Then I started learning about film and then getting connected with Lindy Drew from Humans of St. Louis. And she taught me how to take pictures of people. She trained me on
She's
how
so
to
good.
take portraits. And then I eventually became like I connected with Lindy because I wanted her to capture stories for Kinloch, but we remained in, relationship and I got brought on as a storyteller. So I thank her for that. I thank continuity in Dan Paris and Mike Pagano and Sean Lofton and Kyle in teaching me the art of production. And so, like, right when I got done with the Brown School, Continuity's media production company opened up and I applied. And for some reason, like, I knew I would get in, like, not on some cocky type stuff, but the alignment,
Yes.
like, a media production program for adults. I'm getting ready to do this documentary, but I don't know what I'm doing. Like, this is perfect. So I was a part of the first cohort, and then it was a 9-month program. We met once a week, and the Kinloch Doc short was created in that program, and it got invited to the St. Louis Filmmaker Showcase and the St. Louis International Film Festival and the Benton Park Film Festival. And it's only 4 minutes, so people are like, okay, where's the rest of it? Clearly, I got to extend this thing, but it just kind of things started to align. And I connected with Dan because of my work in college access. I was still working in college access. Like I was introduced to Dan before I even learned about continuity. So when I went to continuity's website and I saw his face, I was like, boop, alignment. I know I'm in. Like this, I don't believe in coincidences. I do not believe in coincidences.
Exactly.
And then it just kind of
I love that.
yeah, went from there. Maybe I'll start a podcast one day. I don't know. That's why I shifted from, I'm a filmmaker, but primarily I'm a storyteller. I don't care what medium I use. It's just what I'm feeling at the time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what aligns with how you're trying to tell your story. That's so wild. I'm also a big believer in walking in alignment, like walking in obedience to the calling that is on your life. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we start walking before we know where we're going, before we know what we're doing, before we have the skills. And that's so powerful. And shout out to your husband for making that investment to say, I'm gonna buy my wife this URL to make sure that she is equipped to do what she needs to do because those small nuggets, those small investments, like they have a ripple effect. And goodness gracious, that's yeah. I was cheesing and smiling hard, hurt my cheeks smiling, listening to you share that. Yeah, I'm curious to see where life takes you because
Oh, me too.
there's so much there.
Me too.
Yeah.
Like it's still not it baffles me, but in a good way. Like I just even now what I'm story coaching, so helping, budding brands and business owners and organizations get better at storytelling. Like this wasn't on my radar this time last year. It wasn't. It just kind of, taking those steps. And I've always been a person where I do first and I learn about it later. Like I learned the actual appropriate way to do it later. But I'm like, if I just, if I see it and I'm sparked by it, it doesn't leave. Like I didn't know how to make a film, but the story of Kinloch didn't leave me. Like I was immersed in it. It did not leave me. And when that happens, I'm learning like I need to do something with it. I don't know what it is, but I need to act on it because it's not leaving my spirit. And so my pastor at the time, he passed away in 2018. But I remember we were doing a living room Bible study, and before we were leaving, he had like my friends like circle around me and was just like, I'm praying over me of just, I had a vision. I see you in Addison, speaking internationally on stages, and I'm just praying for your covering. And this was in 2014, 2015, before Kinloch, right when I started school,
Wow.
before May's Closet, my thrift store. Like I was just getting started. And he had that over, he spoke that over my life, and just over the past 5 and 6 years, and just seeing how, not even necessarily how easy things come for me, but just again that alignment. Like I do the work. I do the work. I educate myself, but it feels seamless. Like I don't
Exactly.
have to scrap and gravel for things, because it was already mine, before I was walking towards it. I just hadn't seen
Mm.
it yet. And it's overwhelming, because we're not taught that. Go to school, get a job, retire, do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do, leave your personal stuff at the door when you come into this job. And but I'm curating, and designing the life that I want. And it's scary as shit,
Yeah.
because I wasn't taught that.
Mhm.
And I'm learning as I go.
Yeah. My goodness. I love your story so much. My gosh. Because on a spiritual level, I'm such a believer that yes, when you are in alignment with what is for you, like not looking left and right about what everybody else is doing, not trying to like form yourself into a box that is not really fit for you for in your potential, but when you align with what your purpose is, it can make the most complicated possibilities and impossibilities just seem so easy.
Yes,
And people look at you like, dang, how you do that? Like, oh yeah, how you do that? Who knows? Man,
it
alignment.
amazes me too.
Alignment. Yeah. I want to ask you about a little bit more about like your thoughts on archiving and collecting and stuff, because this this exhibition is with the Griot Museum of Black History, and I know that the Griot is about to undertake some new collection and archiving efforts, and um, it, from your perspective, like how can community members, like how can we create a collective effort of collecting history and archiving our stories, like what does that look like in your head if on like a St. Louis wide level?
Ooh, um, I would say, for starters, sharing our own stories, with our own discernment, what we're comfortable sharing. You and I talked about like our recent health scares, and just how much in just Black culture we don't talk about things until something pop off. Like getting, my most recent diagnosis with ulcerative colitis. Like my aunt had that, and I didn't know she had that until I was in the hospital. And while these are things that aren't pleasant conversations, they're necessary, to understand, like we don't feel so isolated, that it doesn't feel so random. Like share those, conversations, and have those conversations. The last time I was home, I sat down with my last surviving grandparent, my grandpa, and we talked for 2.5 hours, and I recorded the entire conversation. My goal was, before, and not even before he leaves this earth, I could leave this earth before he does. But before either one of us leave, like I want to sit down and understand him better. I want to learn about, his time in the war and how he felt about it. And I learned so much about my grandpa that I never, knew before. And just probe questions, what do you want your legacy to be, before you leave? And how did you feel about this? How did you feel about serving in the war? Did you even want to go? And I had that on audio. It was, his name is Marvin, and I'm gonna turn it into like this short snippet called like Marvin's Room. And I'm so excited to like play
Ooh.
around with the footage, but like communicate with your elders. And I sometimes gravel with grief in the family members that are lost. Like all the things that I'm doing right now, I would have a ball talking to my grandmas about. Like my grandma Pauline, my dad's mom, we would, oh, I wish she was here so I could have these conversations with her, and just going through her photos, and just, talking about marriage, and talking about, migrating to the city, talking about being she was biracial. She never knew her father. She was a twin, and I just have so many questions, and I wish I knew or I cared this much enough at that time that all of them were here. But because of their losses, that's what prompted me to kind of go towards this direction. So it worked. But while your elders are here, I know with the pandemic, that portion of the population were the most affected. Like I think about when they talk about the number of people who passed away from COVID, 500,000. I'm like, that's 500,000 stories that ain't gonna get told. Like that's 500,000 stories that they went to the grave with those stories. And so whether it be COVID or just any abrupt reason why people leave this earth, I'm like, I just talk to people, like learn about people. I always say storytelling is the great neutralizer. We have so many biases just based on looking at people, but when you learn their story, you become connected. You can relate and you can empathize. Like everything ain't just I keep to myself, I'll worry about it by myself. No, open your mouth. Open
Yeah.
your mouth and communicate from a very, minute level. Just even if it's just within your own family, your neighbors, as you knocking on the door over the summertime, because you know how summers in St. Louis get hot, drop off a cold water bottle and sit on the porch and just ask them how their days are going. It's something as simple as just taking the time to want to learn about people who you would not otherwise have sat down and talked to.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that opens up, like the gate for learning about so much stuff, because especially folks who are rooted in a space, they might take you on a walk. They might point out some other stuff. They might have something in their house, in their own collection, that is precious, or that's from a certain time period, that connects the dots between yesterday and today. And we miss that when we're not taking intentional time and effort to collect, to archive, to capture our stories. And so, yeah, I look forward to how the griot activates this through the institution. But I hope that there's an element to it where community members are encouraged to do it themselves, DIY. Like, is there a platform that can be created that collects, uploads or in pictures and audio of whatever people want to contribute? I think that would be so beautiful.
It's interesting that you say that. And I talk about this a lot on Twitter, just the frustration of finding archival material with Black people, like trying to find a picture of a Black hand holding a phone,
Man.
like having to scroll to page 42 to find a Black hand, right? And so there's this organization called the Southside Home Movies Project based out of the University of Chicago that was founded by a Black woman. And their content is curated by Black families in Chicago that donated their family footage to this university, to where I'm working with them to license some of their content for Kinloch. And it's not well known because it's very small, and I would love to see the griot do something like that. Like if you have tubs of photos from older family members who have passed on and you're like, I don't know what to do with all these photos, donate it to Black-based historic entities like the griot, like the Vashon Museum or whatever it is, because we want to come in and we want to see that. Beyond the Martin Luther Kings and the Malcolm X's and the Harriet Tubmans, no, I want to know about Miss Loretta, who led a sit-in at Goody Goody. I don't know, but I want to learn about the local hometown heroes that she may not be alive anymore, but people may have captured that moment. And the thing is, like, we don't go, over grandma's house and just peruse through her photo albums. We just know that grandma just collect photo albums. Like, rather than waiting until she passes away to start looking through there, like look through it with her. And there's ways that we can monetize our archival work, like, and use that funding to support our initiatives. But I would love to see the griot, progress to have like an online database where people can pay. They can donate their family footage and their family photos, and for entities and universities and organizations and indie filmmakers that want to use it, they can pay for that, and that will support the back end of those organizations and those institutions. I would love to see something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll have to like keep you connected with the
Oh, Miss
team
Lois, the
and start
task
activating some
on.
stuff.
Did I did I spark off as low as you to turn that camera on?
Lois, would you like to chime in?
Well, I'm just really glad to hear. I'm glad I just got off. I was on another Zoom, so I was trying to maneuver between two. Anyway, I'm thanking you for being on tonight. I really, really appreciate it. This whole journey with us, this project is just really fantastic. So, but I'm glad to hear you talk about the archiving and collecting process, because, one of the things that I think is traditionally historic for us as Black people is that we've not valued our own stuff. And we've been taught not to value it. Not that we don't value it, we've been taught not to value it. And so I've been really disappointed over the years that I've been in the museum business that some of us allow our stuff to stay under the bed, in boxes, or we die. And then people who have no interest in it take it and put it in trash cans, and all of that beautiful history and the stories and the traditions that is African and is African American, it's in the trash can somewhere. Where had we had a sense of value for those things, and those things they're not just things, they represent us. They represent who we are as a people in general, not just an individual, but who we are as a people. And so I am hoping that with this initiative that we've been doing for a bit, but now we're going to make it more public, I guess you'll say. I'm hoping that people will begin to embrace the notion of the value in sharing and preserving, and then using these objects and these items to really build up who we are as a people, and to share that, especially with young folks who have constant struggles with who they are and why they are and whose they are, and who struggle with their own responsibility to keep this legacy, to keep our traditions going. So I'm hoping that as we go more public with this, we have some students now at UMSA who are doing some of those oral interviews, and I've been working with them and giving them some names of folks to talk with. But again, it's as Alana has said, it's not just those folks who have some notoriety. It's some folks who you don't even know about. I was talking to an elder a couple of days ago who was telling me about how her her husband's brother had worked as one of the workers on that not aloe plaza, yeah, I guess it is the fountain down there where all the colored water comes out down by Union Station. I never knew that before. And so we talked about that for hours. And I'm curious to know, what did that mean at that time to have Black people there? What were they doing? How were they treated? There's millions of stories that can come from one connection. So I don't want to go on. I know this is Alana's opportunity to talk tonight, but again, to just appreciate the mention of the fact that we are interested in collecting. And again, we've talked about this for years. How do we, one, collect, but how do we also make the availability of our archives a income generator? Because we have to figure out ways, as well as Black people, as entrepreneurs, as institution builders, how do we maintain our institutions? And we don't maintain it from other folks, because other folks don't care if we are there or not necessarily. So we have to find ways that, to make sure that we are around. So again, I'm looking forward to working with Alana and other people in the community who might want to help us with this collections process and
I'd love to help
archiving and storytelling as it is for our community.
I love to help support those efforts,
Great.
Miss Lois.
Thank you.
Not even just because I'm struggling, like finishing this film and finding archival material, but besides that, like what you said, we keep it under the bed, we throw it away, and I'm like, there's a way better use for this.
Yeah.
And I would love to support those efforts.
And it is as safe and as useful at the grill as it is. And I don't have I don't have an issue in general with the Missouri History Museum.
I get it.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yes. Call a spade a spade. Call a spade a spade.
So, but what, you hear me.
Yes. Yes, I do.
We have to start to protect and take care of and direct our own destiny. We just have to do it. We cannot depend on somebody else. We cannot even trust that somebody else is going to tell our stories in the way we need to tell them. And so this issue is bigger than just collecting. It's about the survival of who we are. It's about
Agreed.
our people. It's about, paying homage to those traditions, homage to those traditions that brought us to where we are, and that
Mhm.
will be important if we're going to ensure the longevity of another generation of people. So I'll get off
Yeah.
the
Thank you, Miss Lowe.
soapbox.
Thank you so much for that. Like I feel inspired. I feel so excited that y'all are connecting and because
And we
I just know
did
that
some
this could
time
go
back,
some for
and we
real.
we
It
did
is.
some time back, and both of us super busy trying to do what we do and just haven't followed through. So
Mhm.
this time we'll make sure we do.
Yes, we will.
Yes, yes, I love it. And I want to welcome everyone who's on this call to chime in. This is very much like casual conversation with Alana because one, you're brilliant, but also like there's just so much that I feel like the power of conversation is a like a generative thing. Like you never know what might transpire or unfold itself just by having a conversation with people about these different topics. And so, we just witnessed that between you and Laura. It's like, okay, there's something here. How might we be good stewards of that? How might we usher, some possibilities that activate and actualize that sense of alignment between both of your purposes. I love that so much. One thing that both of you brought up was like owning our narrative, owning our story, and not being so quick to trust other folks to tell our stories. And uh, when I heard that, the thing that I thought about was how right now in Hollywood there is this genre of like just horrifying racial trauma, using racial trauma of Black folks as a entertainment device, monetizing off of our pain with these historical pieces. And I'm thinking specifically of the new Amazon series called Them, Lovecraft Country. There's a new film that's like 35 minutes on Netflix. I think it's called Two Distant Strangers. All of these media, TV shows, movies, etc., that use our pain as shock value, as ways of saying, yeah, this is a horror story, but we're gonna make money off of it, and we don't see that benefit. Uh, I watched all of these shows, and it was gut wrenching. It was triggering. It was re-traumatizing, and so I'm curious to know your opinion, Alana, on like how do what might we do? Like, what might independent creators like yourself be able to do to ensure that our stories are dignified? Not only that we are telling our own stories, but we're highlighting things other than what's hurt us.
Trauma porn.
Yeah.
That's one thing I kept at the forefront of my mind when starting this documentary, because telling the story of Kinloch can be told in so many different ways. Um, the many things that happened to that community, it's very surprising that it is still standing. And educating people on what occurred, that was very important to me. But I made it a point towards the end of the movie. I'm like, when you meet people from Kinloch, they're not sad people. They're not people that you feel sorry for. And I wanted to make sure that people did not get that idea when watching the end of it. Like, yes, you can be frustrated at the issues that occurred, but I want you to leave this film feeling like connected, like it reminds you of your own family, your own hometown. It reminds you of issues that happen in Black communities in your own hometown. People who watch it like love my dad, and it reminds them of their uncle. And like, that's what I want. Like, I want to educate you so you can be aware, but don't feel sorry for me. And I feel like so much of what's going on in Hollywood, which I have no desire to work in Hollywood unless Ava call me on something. But she has a way of showing beauty imagery in her content, or Issa. Them are my only two, and Shonda. But they like to sensationalize it because that's what we're drawn to.
Mhm.
Drama, bad girls club type stuff, true crime stories. We have been in a season of racial terror for the past decade, at least this round of racial terror. I can't tell you how many times like I've gotten feedback on the rough cut and people are telling me like, oh, Kinloch is next to Ferguson. Why you don't have more Ferguson in here? Because it ain't about Ferguson. Like, I don't know. Like, there's enough content about Ferguson. Like, Kinloch has enough history to hold its own weight. Like, it has enough integrity to hold its own weight. I don't care if the only way that you can understand Kinloch is an introduction through Ferguson. That's a you problem. That's not a me problem. I'm not sensationalizing the stuff that happened in these communities just for you to feel like you can enjoy this content. Then the film is not for you. That's my issue. And so when making this documentary, I had like a preview session. I had former Kinlockians in the room. Like, I created a social work, analysis, pre and post surveys. Like, I did. I had them in the room and was like, okay, so is this accurate? Did I tell this correctly? Did I do this correctly? I didn't live in Kinloch. I didn't live this life. I'm just a vessel to help tell you all stories. And so getting their feedback kind of helps shape the structure of this story to make sure, like, y'all the ones who live this. Am I telling this story with justice? Like, I know how the media has treated y'all for decades, and I don't want to be a part of that. And so bringing their, which we're taught in the Brown School, like, what does the community want? Bringing that community voice in to say, like, yes, Alana, you told this correctly, or maybe you should shift it this way. Like, I took that into heavy consideration because I did not want to be added to the list of racial sensationalizing Black content. That's a long answer to your question, but
It's a perfect answer. Like, yeah, sensationalization and exploitation, like those two things, it gets us every time, and people watch, and it hurts. It really does hurt. So yeah, kudos to you for social working a film. Like, I haven't heard of many films where it's like, this is a community support, like community entrusted, like folks helped to create this narrative, and going back to owning the narrative, making sure that no one person is owning it, that this is an our story thing. And it's powerful. It's it could be a really great model for how independent filmmaking could be more just, more inclusive, more satisfying. I know that we don't have that much time, but I want to, welcome anyone else on this call to just jam with you, have conversation with you. If there are any things that you're curious about or want to hear Alana's perspective on, definitely feel free to get off mute and chime in. Yes, Summer.
Hey, can y'all hear me? I'm in my car, so I just want to make sure the audio is fine.
Hey, Summer.
Hey, I just wanted to share that Alana has personally inspired me to see the beauty, the depth, and the creative possibilities in my very own day-to-day just story that is being lived out every day in the community that I intersect with as my story has been being written and played out. And I just think it's so amazing having seen your journey and just see your commitment to telling Kinloch's story, and to see all of the, just other really amazing accomplishments you were able to do just in the pursuit of that one goal. And I just like wanted to personally share that because you inspired that in me. Like, when I personally found myself in, identity crisis after having my son, it literally took me going back to my parents' house, going in the attic, like finding that tub of things, of all of my belongings from birth all the way up until like high school, and literally just going through all of those pictures and writings and old homework assignments, and everything just was able to allow me to just really soak up who I was and remind myself of who I was and like what my story and narrative has been. And it just really helped reground me. So I just think I forget the name of the amazing woman who spoke with you, Alana. But she mentioned just like Miss Lois, am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Yes. I appreciated that she shared about just like the importance of us being in control of our stories and having our stories appropriately archived, because there is so much power in constantly regrounding us as an entire community and helping us to remember what our identity is, because it gets real hard because a lot of people are always telling us what our identity is or is not and what it is or is not worth. So I just want to share that.
Thank you, Summer. That means a lot. I
Yeah.
appreciate
And I just wanted to add to G that I think, when you talk about the stories, and particularly those Hollywood stories that pre, uh, project so much trauma, you don't have to make up stories about the trauma that we've experienced.
Exactly.
It's there. It's real. It's real. Just do them and do them correctly, and you got all the trauma you need. And believe me, you will sell as many admissions or tickets or whatever it is you need to sell to make your money to those real stories of trauma. But and we buy into that because it's entertaining, and we and it's okay to be entertained. We need that too. You need some, little laughter in your life, or you need a little joy, or you need a little entertainment for whatever mode it comes from. But we need to look at how we allow them to do that, and then we support it. I couldn't watch Lovecraft. I tried. I watched one or two, and I couldn't watch it anymore because I was like, "What the heck is
it's a
going
lot.
on?" And
It's,
even them, I had to call my daughter and say, "Can you explain to me what this is about? Because I'm lost. I'm not getting it. Something's wrong here. I'm just not getting it. Maybe I'm too old, or maybe I'm out of touch, but I'm just not getting it."
Or
So those
maybe they should not have made that series.
maybe they why what is this for, and even as much as I loved and appreciated a lot of the symbolism in Black Panther and some of the other we have to be careful how we spread those around, because some people believe that, look, Wakanda is real. I
mhm,
mean, we need to be, I'm just saying, as Black folks, we don't have the luxury of just accepting everything
mhm,
that's put out there for us. We have a responsibility to be discriminating about what we bring into our psyche and what we allow our kids to be exposed to and what we help spread throughout this world. Because in the long run, it only hurts us.
agreed.
Exactly.
Random, but I learned this the other day. I had a consultation with the post-production supervisor to trying to help me just push past like getting through the hump of finishing this documentary. We were on the topic about archival clips, archival licensing, and just how even in major Hollywood movies, when you tend to see the same Black history, civil rights type archival clips because these major entities like a Fox News owns a
They
lot of
have
it.
them.
Like
They have them. Yeah.
Emmett Till's archival footage is all owned by Fox News, and they put a heavy price tag on it. You continue to see the same water hose, dog biting, civil rights clips. The picture of the two young men that were hung by a tree with their shirt open. I see that picture in damn near every Black History movie because those are the cheapest. And
Mm.
they're gatekeepers. They are legit gatekeepers. And people, I got quoted $2,000 a minute for 1 year of festival rights to use an old Kinloch documentary that came out in the 60s that is on YouTube that I can rip.
Mm.
$2,000 a minute for 1 year, meaning I'm going to have to reapply to use that after a year. And if I want to have like a broadcast distribution deal on TV, I'm gonna have to pay more for that. You know what I mean? And so just like the gatekeeping of it for our content that we are just needlessly dishing to these larger entities because they have a name. We need to be giving that to a Southside Home Movie Project, into the Griot Museum, into the Vashon Museum, into these Black entities that will do something with it. And for people who want to use it for their own projects, you're not gatekeeping by putting a sticker tag of $2,000 a minute. I'm gonna just rip it off YouTube.
And it's no
Yeah.
good if it's not accessible to our community, then it's no value to me.
Yes.
That's my thinking.
Yeah.
If I can't share it, if I can't make it accessible, I mean, it's already not accessible. So if
Yeah.
the things that we collect and we take stewardship over, if it can't be made accessible to our community, then we
What's the
might as
point?
well not do it.
What's the point?
What's the
But that's
point?
my third. I made several points about the importance of documentation, but that's a third reason why. We have to fight against these other gatekeepers with larger names and larger budgets, so we can stop seeing the same content recycled when there is so much more that they are charging high ticket price to use for a certain amount, for a certain usage. It's ridiculous.
But that only changes if we make that change, if we control it, if we direct how it goes. If we don't, then it just continues to function the way it always has. And we'll still, 15 years from now, another group of folks will be sitting on this on some platforms talking about what we need to do. So when do we start to make the difference? When do we make the change? When do we start to be in control? And there are
Today.
enough of us who are doing things, who have energies and we don't have to have a lot of money to do
No,
everything we need to do. We just
we
have to
don't.
be united in doing it. We have to figure out the way to get beyond some of the turf issues and some of the, jealousies and, in order to make ourselves really be responsive to the things that are facing us head on right now. We don't have a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Totally, totally agree. Oh my gosh, this has been a powerful conversation.
Agreed.
My is so amazing. Like we started with talking about music in St. Louis, and now we're like constructing ideas of how do we truly own black narratives on a community level, on a city level. And St. Louis this is a ripe opportunity for us to be thinking about this, but also activating ideas on this. Especially thinking about the leadership of our city right now. We have black women at the helm of some powerful positions, and we
And we have
you
to
know
keep them there.
yeah, we got to keep it there because we all know black women make some magical things happen and manifest in this world, and this is our time. And so I know that I can be that annoying person who's like, hey, Lois and Alana, y'all said y'all want to talk more about activating this. Let's really do this, because there are a lot of resources that I'm sure will come our way to help amplify this, and that goes back to your points earlier about being in alignment. And so I look forward to the possibilities of what might manifest just from this conversation. Before we head out though, Alana, like I know that you have a lot of channels. So uh how can people stay connected with you? And if anything, what other things might people be able to engage with you in terms of content?
Ooh, let's see. If you just want to see me like shoot the breeze and not even worry about content, just like be with my people, I'm on Twitter. Like I feel like every creative should have an outlet where they're not worried about engagement and content and clients and work. Like Twitter, that is my haven for that. And so on Twitter, at I am underscore Alana Marie. My email, I am Alana Marie at gmail.com. My Instagram, at I am Alana Marie. Kinloch's Instagram, at the Kinloch Doc. Um, I'm very open. I try to be, very responsive in a timely fashion, but I love having these types of conversations. I stay in my Instagram stories. I love talking about Black content. I love talking about storytelling. But I'm just, Instagram and Twitter are my jams and my email.
Nice. And Lois, with the griot, how might people get engaged and connect?
Well, you can reach out to us on our brand new website at thegriotmuseum.com, and you can leave a message there. We've reopened, just we're gradually ramping up to full status, but we've reopened, and so you can drop by. Well, you can't just drop by unannounced, but you can call us and make an appointment to come by, or you can email us at info@thegriotmuseum.com and just send us a note. There are all kinds of ways. Just reach out. One of those, we have email, we have the Instagram and the Twitter. And look, I'm saying this because I know nothing about most of those things, but you guys do. So look up the griot and you'll find a link for us on all of those formats. But we'd love to talk
Yes.
to anybody who's interested.
Yeah, Lois, when you
It's interested and serious.
yes,
Ooh, yes,
emphasis on the serious, ready to
yes,
act.
yes.
When you said the Twitter, I chuckle. I chuckle. We are on the Twitter, but in the chat, I pasted the link to Alana's page on the Grio's new website. So definitely check that out. Use that as your starting point to get to know even more about the Griot Museum, and you will see all the links that Lois just mentioned. On the footer of the website and the headers, like just dive deep. Thank y'all so much for joining us for this conversation. I know I feel fired up, and so I hope y'all do too.
I do.
Thank
Thank
you.
y'all. Thank
Thank
y'all
you.
for y'all time. God bless.
Yes, thank you, Alana.
All right. Y'all take
Peace.
care.